one of my favorite tales, and I bet you remember this one, was about this princess. And for some reason, she was caught out in a terrible thunderstorm, frantically out knocking on doors, seeking shelter for the night. Finally, one of the houses lets her in. A woman invites her to spend the night. And the next thing you know, the family is building this crazy tower of mattresses, and she agrees to sleep there. In the morning, she joins the family for breakfast, and over coffee, they ask her about how she slept. Instead of being grateful for the bed, she complains of her aching back and what a horrible night's sleep she had. And what does the family do? They embrace her as the princess, and she marries the guy. Now, does anybody like me hear that story and think, wait a minute? First off, clearly she was drunk. Who runs around scantily clothed in a thunderstorm knocking on strangers' doors? And furthermore, what kind of homeowner invites the woman in and gives her a bed? Did you catch the detail in the story? The guy was living with his mother. These days, we don't call that a prince, we call it a red flag. Cinderella. She finally gets to the ball, meets the prince, and dances her heart away. We all know the story with the shoe. Now, please, when I hear that the prince commanded all the women in the land to come to his party, I hear narcissist. And then, so she lost her shoe. I mean, haven't we all left a glove, a key, something at a party? Give me a break. The guy gets all his buddies and the police out the next morning to look for her? That's called stalker. Sleeping Beauty, she was a trip. Sleeping in that glass box for 13 years. She hadn't brushed her teeth or taken a shower, and she's laying there waiting for a prince to come and kiss her. Those stories were all flawed, seriously flawed. Classic tales suggesting that as women, our best strategy to a dynamic life was to play the damsel in distress. Passively waiting to be rescued was seen as a viable path to living happily ever after. Now these days, as women, we can all agree that playing the victim no longer serves us. And yet, what do we do during those times in our life where things are not unfolding like a fairy tale? Life gets messy. Sometimes it's a scary tale. Princes turn into frogs. Tragedy strikes the kingdom. Fortunes are lost. What do we do during those tough times? Despite that we know better, we tend to create a story about the why and the why me. Sometimes those stories, if we choose to look at them, are equally flawed, much like the fairy tales. This morning, I'm going to give you a 3-step process that will change your story, change your life. The first step is forgiveness. I don't mean forgiveness with any religious connotation, nor am I talking about the old adage, forgive and forget. What's your own tragic story or loss or tough time? You're not going to forget the business loss, the financial failure, the failed marriage or tough divorce, the crazy ex. You're not going to forget. In 2004, I had the opportunity to visit South Africa and spent a month there. One day in our tours, we left the coast of Cape Town and ventured out to Robben Island. Robben Island is where Nelson Mandela spent the majority of the 27 years he was incarcerated in solitary confinement. It was an amazing day. We toured the island, we toured the prison, and we toured his cell, which was no bigger than a teeny closet. And we learned so much from the tour guide, but the one thing I always remember 10 years later is the way he described Nelson leaving prison. And after 27 years of his life lost, Nelson said that he looked out at the gate that would buy me my freedom, and I knew in an instant that if I did not leave my bitterness behind, I would still be imprisoned. If he could have forgiven 27 years of his life, I'll bet we can all find a way to forgive the circumstances that we're living with. Step number 2 out of a step 3 process is find the nugget. Think of your own tough time, your loss, your failure, the thing you feel embarrassed about, whatever it might be. And as you look out over the mounds of rubble that might be left in the destruction, there's good in that. Whether or not you choose to look for it, there are nuggets of good. In my own life, about 7 years ago, my husband, Gary, seemingly healthy and vibrant, was diagnosed with late-stage kidney cancer. Surprisingly, and just 5 months later, he passed away. Now, I went through the normal grieving you would expect during a traumatic loss like that with my 9-year-old son. And there were days where I was known to go to bed, grieving, get Tanner off to school, come home, and set the alarm for 3 in the afternoon so I wouldn't sleep the day away. But as much as it's a cliche, time does heal. And with time, I was able to look for those nuggets in my own situation. What I found is I was surprised how easy it was to find the nuggets and how many there were. I mean, here I had an amazing relationship with my son, partly because of what we went through together. I have an incredible group of friends who supported me and created a net for Tanner and I during those tough times that ensured we could not fail. And you know what? Looking at the bright side at age 53, I have the opportunity to choose another partner for the next chapter in my life. And maybe someone who has even a little bit different qualities than I would have chosen 20 years ago. So it's your choice. You can look for it and find the nugget. And when you do, you'll carry those to step number 3, which is to create a new story, one that's more empowering to you. Think about it. What's the story that you've been telling that everyone's tired of? And if you can't think of it, ask your spouse or your coworker, and they'll tell you what they're tired of. Maybe it's the manager who looked you over 3 times for the promotion you didn't get. Maybe you were laid off or lost your retirement. But I encourage you to forgive. Find your nuggets and create a new story. Change your story, change your life.